Hello, hello. Hello, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me now?
Hello.
Okay, jeez, oh man. Sorry, everybody. This is a pain in the butt. I don't know what was going on there with my sound. Please let me know if you see any other issues so we can resolve those as soon as possible. So, now let's get into the show. If there's an issue, I'll just get right into it, and I'll probably just hop over on my phone. So please, I appreciate you guys sticking around through all those awful technical difficulties. I want to say, hey, what's up, Brennan, in the comments. Didn't think you'd be here on the live stream, but it's awesome to have you. We'll have to get Brennan on the show sometime again soon. Maybe have a Skype interview. I know you guys are enjoying those other interviews, so it's pretty awesome. First of all, I want to say, while we're watching this, I may answer some questions, may give some answers. We're talking a little bit about the history of Fanco Wrestling, how it all started, where it started. Brennan, who's in the comments, was actually there on some of the initial parts of Fanco Wrestling. And then we're going to talk about where we've been and where we're going next. But the first thing I want to talk about today is some wrestling news. So, the Dake and Dieringer, they finally wrestled, and Dake won. Dake won the series 2-0, and I have to say it's not that crazy that he won. I predicted Dieringer maybe would pull a little bit closer of a score, but the thing is, both of these guys had a lot of they had a lot of time to train. They had a lot of time to train in these couple of months since Dake's injury. But, they're back now, and Dake is on the world team. So, there's really not much to say about that. But, now we're just looking forward to Yanni and Zayn, which, of course, is the next thing upcoming. Adam Rice, I see you said that the match was boring, and I can't disagree with you too much. Both of those matches were boring. Also, I see Caden Henschel in the comments. What's up, Caden? Also, another wrestling YouTuber, the biggest wrestling vlogger on YouTube. It's awesome to have you in the comments and watching. And I see Team Bummer Drummer. Yeah, you are all full Team Dieringer. And there were a lot of people who were, especially in this off season. I've seen a lot of people go, maybe this whole Dake situation kind of turned them off from what Dake was up to, and it was kind of unfortunate that this had happened. And can't really blame you for being upset. But now we got Yanni and Zayn. Of course, this weekend was insane in wrestling. Yanni and Zayn, the arbitration was settled by a third party. Of course, I have a whole video up about that, so I'm not going to get into that whole discussion. But now we have the match happening on September 2nd. The location is set, the date is set, September 2nd in Wilkes-Barre, PA, or Wilkes-Barre as some people call it, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. The match will happen over Labor Day weekend. I will not be in attendance. It's a little bit further of a drive for me. If I was still back in PA, maybe I would be, but right now, I will not be there, but I will certainly be watching. And without further ado, I want to just get into a little bit of community talk and talk to you guys a little bit about Fanco Wrestling. It's been an incredible journey so far, and I say journey because this is something that started back in January and has just grown exponentially from January until actually beginning of February is really when it started, up until now, which is August. And I want to talk about the history of that. So, like I said, let's stop stalling. And talk about the history of Fanco Wrestling. So, first of all, I'd like to, have you wondered, you guys in the comments, wrestling fans in the comments, have you ever wondered, what is Fanco Wrestling? What the heck is that name? Where does it come from? My name is not Josiah Fanco. That's not my last name, although, some people may think that. What is it? I'll get to that in just a minute. Fanco Wrestling started this channel in February, and it was actually not my first YouTube channel. I actually had started a couple of YouTube channels previously. A couple of them were just fun. They were just me throwing out my own videos and ideas and things like that. Nothing real it wasn't anything wrestling related necessarily, although I worked with some wrestlers in the past, wrestling camps. But the one thing that I did do, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I did do a movies YouTube channel, and that was a heck of a lot of fun doing that, but I just really wasn't gaining the traction that I wanted. And I know that a lot of other YouTubers out there are kind of like that, where you sometimes do what you love, you do what you're talking about, but it's not always it doesn't always get you the views. And then after doing some research, some things on my own, I found that there was a dire need for wrestling content on YouTube. And yes, of course, at the time, Flow Wrestling, of course, is out there on YouTube doing a phenomenal job promoting wrestling, giving wrestling content, but they're mostly on their own website. Then Rudis, another incredible brand. I love Rudis, love all the Rudis wrestling gear, wear a lot of Rudis gear. They're also putting a lot of wrestling content out. But there just seemed to be some sort of thing missing as far as wrestling content on YouTube. Like, we needed something more, and that's kind of where I came in. So this dates back to the Dayton Fix versus Nick Suriano match, and this was, of course, a hyped up match, and I was super looking forward to this match and everything going on with it. But what happened is I decided, you know what? I'm going to make a video on this. And just, maybe some people will watch it. And I kind of known that people were searching for this, looking for this on YouTube already, but there just wasn't anybody talking about it. So I made this video, and it did well. It did well, actually. It had a couple hundred views in like a few days, which, compared to my movie channel, was a big hit. I was super psyched that there were a couple hundred views. So I was like, okay, if I can replicate this and do videos like this every single week, maybe there's an audience out there for it. And of course, that's where you guys are. You guys are the wrestling fans that are here supporting this channel and supporting wrestling. And really, since then, I've just been making videos every single week, every other week, I guess, now in the off season. But since then, it's really been, once I started doing that, what really helped the channel to grow is Spencer Lee. I really have Spencer Lee to thank a lot for that support, and not in the way that you think. I made a video, I received a question. Somebody was asking, was Spencer Lee okay? Is Spencer Lee okay at the beginning of the season? Because he lost to Sebastian Rivera already in the season. And he had a couple of matches that were a little bit closer than anybody could predict and anybody was really thinking. Then the Oklahoma State match happened, and he wrestled Nick Piccinini and got pinned. Well, the video that had been out for probably about a month already, which had around, 500 to 1,000 views, ended up skyrocketing. And because everybody was thinking, is Spencer Lee okay? Well, it was actually talking about an old topic, but really it brought it back into the forefront. And from there, it's really been growing. And, similar to, I know Caden, if you're still in the comments, a very, very similar situation as far as, I know he had a previous YouTube channel, and he ended up just making some videos, making some wrestling videos, just having some fun, and ended up, growing very similar to myself over this time period, and just, booming success. And, I personally just want to keep going. Now, as far as Fanco Wrestling, what the heck is Fanco? What does that mean? Well, you guys may know that when you look at my channel, it says that it started in like October of 2018, and of course I didn't start making videos until this year. Well, Fanco actually comes from a little bit of an experiment that I did with some of my friends. I see your guys' comments, by the way, in the comment section, I see that Coxer Factory Zembauer. Love your show, man. Really appreciate your support. It's so awesome to have you here. Brendan, I see your commenting saying, looking forward to some more wrestling talk. Congrats on 1 million. Really appreciate that. It's awesome that, we were able to get 1 million. So where does Fanco come from? Well, Fanco Wrestling actually started out in 2018, the name, whenever I had an experiment with my friends when I started a fantasy wrestling league. And really, there's nothing else out there on the internet like this now. There has never been, and I don't know if there ever will be unless I actually bring this into the forefront, because this is just I'll be honest, it's one of the coolest things that I've done personally with my friends. It was a lot of fun, and I don't want to give it away because it's something I may actually do in the future if there is support for that. So a fantasy wrestling league, all looking into the college wrestlers, looking into the college teams, and really just bringing a friend group close together, just like any other fantasy league, fantasy football, fantasy hockey, fantasy baseball, same exact thing. And I see where the name came from was actually Fantasy College Wrestling, Fanco Wrestling. And I just thought that sounded like a cool name, Fantasy College Wrestling, Fanco, abbreviate that. Fanco Wrestling. And it, now it doesn't necessarily, mean anything. It's just kind of my brand name is Fanco Wrestling. And yeah, DeLorean, it would be amazing to make an app for that. And it's something that I absolutely want to do in the future, and something I would like to do going forward. Where I did it with my friends in the past, it was actually it was an Excel spreadsheet. It was actually Google sheet, which I still have. It was how I actually taught myself how to do Excel. I know I don't want to get into boring aspects of that, but how I got into that, and my friends loved it. I loved it. It was so much fun throughout the entire year of wrestling, and it's something I 100% want to do in the future. Whether you're putting in your own bets or betting with your league, it would be so much fun. But anyway, that is where Fanco Wrestling actually comes from. So yes, all you watching right now on the live stream, you are getting this inside scoop, which is pretty darn fun. Now, the next step that kind of came into this is, as I was talking, I mentioned that how those videos blew up. Well, what really made me want to take the leap? And I see that Isaiah Galloway, he said, I just started making wrestling YouTube videos. What are some tips to help grow the channel? Yeah, I'll get right into that and just discuss it with you and tell you what my number one tip is, not just for wrestling or for YouTube, but I guess my number one tip for success and for going after your dreams and your goals. And if you're interested in that, keep listening, because I really want to share that with you. So like I said, I had a previous YouTube channel for movies, and it was kind of working out. And as I said, I was looking into maybe starting something with wrestling. This was around last Christmas. I remember talking to my cousin about this. I remember talking to a couple of my friends. And then it was after a alumni match at Candy McMillan High School, and which was my high school. I was home. I was actually, that's where I was living. And I went to the high school match and was there with my friend. We ended up, Brendan was actually, you guys know Brendan, on the channel. He and I went to the match, and then we went back to my house after. We were just hanging out in my garage, and Fanco Wrestling really, I would say, was kind of born that night, and that I was telling Brendan all these things as to why this channel could be successful and why I want to help reach new wrestling fans and help young wrestling fans, young wrestlers, help them to grow into becoming great wrestlers and great young men, great people, and just reaching and talking to a new audience. So it was really that night that this is where my tip comes from, is just taking the leap. You have to take the leap and go after. You have to go after something. There's so many things that I've done in my life that, and I don't want to make this into a whole, me type of thing. but just because you asked for advice, I want to give you my advice that you have to take the leap. There are so many things in my life that I've tried and failed at. Like I said, this isn't my first YouTube channel. It's growing, and I'm so happy that it's growing. But I've done YouTube channels in the past that have failed. They just plain and simple. They've not done what I wanted them to do. I did not reach my goals with them, and they failed. And that was that. My goal for my movies YouTube channel at the beginning of the year, I set goals at the beginning of every single year. Not resolutions, but goals. I wanted to reach 500 subscribers. 500, guys. 500 subscribers. And that was passed within a couple weeks because of this. But without taking that leap, without going after something, whether you're going to fail or not, you have to go after it, because otherwise you're going to regret it. And that's how I feel with a lot of things. You can't regret things in life, so why not go after it? What the worst you're going to do is fail, and that's kind of what happened here too. So, anyways, I'll kind of get off my soapbox and all that, and answer a couple of these questions. Cox or Factory Zembauer, who do you think would win between Cael Sanderson and Bo Nickel? Well, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, look, I think I would say, Cael. I would say bottom line Cael. Now, I've heard things that Cael still beats up on Bo and all those other guys in the room. I haven't been in Penn State wrestling room. I don't know what goes on in there, but I would have to say Cael in his prime compared to Bo in his prime. Cael, considering if they were the same weight and everything like that. I just think Cael is a little bit more technical and knows a lot. I see, Bob Klein, you say Cael, Adam Rice, you also agree that Cael would win, and I have to agree with you there. Now, what this kind of goes into, what these questions kind of go into, you guys may be wondering, what's next for Fanco? What is next for Fanco Wrestling, and how can you benefit? How can you benefit from Fanco Wrestling? Well, I'm going to talk to you about that. The future of Fanco Wrestling is this. Like I said, I started this channel back in February. That gave me 2 months of the actual wrestling season, the folk style season, the college season, which is arguably the most exciting times, February and March, for wrestling fans. March is spectacular. So, what's going forward now? Well, guess what? This channel, I've heard a lot of doubt from others. People I know, people I've talked to, people who comment, saying that this channel is not going to go anywhere in the off season. Well, actually, we've gained 3,000 to 4,000 subscribers since March, and it's still growing. So now that we're going into the season, this is where we're going to pick it up. This is where we're going to pick it up as wrestling fans. I'm going to keep pushing out that content and keep going out with you guys, throwing out those wrestling previews until the season begins. But the other thing, for everybody in the comments now, I want to say, first of all, one good thing that can help support the channel and help it to keep growing is doing these 3 things. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do right now to help support Fanco Wrestling and help giving you the great content that you deserve as wrestling fans. Number one, and Cox or Factory Zembauer, I'll get to your question about Iowa and Penn State in just a moment, I promise. But number one is in the description below. In the description below, I actually have a link to Instagram where you can go follow me. I started a Fanco Wrestling Instagram account a couple months ago. Wasn't posting anything yet. I was waiting until a good time, whenever I actually had time and could actually commit to it. Well, now's the time. I will be posting on Instagram every single week, and whether it's in Instagram stories or just on Instagram, where you guys can share, you can comment and engage there. It's just a little bit different than YouTube, and some people like Instagram a little bit more. But please go follow on Instagram and tag your friends, tell them about it, share the stuff on there, because it'll just help Fanco Wrestling grow. The second thing that will help is just by commenting. Commenting on all the future videos, liking the videos, and sharing them. That will really help Fanco Wrestling grow and continue to give out new content. Now, the third thing that will help support the channel is actually, I just released a new line of merchandise. I have not even announced this yet, so this is the first time that I'm announcing it to the public. Is the new Fanco Wrestling merchandise line, and I actually have a shirt on here that you guys can check out. Fanco Wrestling. This is one of the shirts. Look, I had a lot of old shirts up, and I appreciate everybody who bought that, but I actually upped my game. I made it a lot better quality material. I mean, this stuff I have on right now, it's solid. I really like this material of shirt. A couple other cool shirts that I wanted to show you guys. I have two more, and I won't bore you, but I think that, for wrestling fans, for sporting this around at the matches or practice, it's great. This shirt, Fanco Wrestling, right there, just the inverse logo, which I love that logo actually a lot, changing it out. And then this is one of my personal favorites, is Stop Stalling. Of course, the slogan of the show, stop stalling, start watching wrestling. And this is just a fun little shirt that you guys can support, And I'll say this, if you do, decide to, help support the show, help support the channel, and purchase some Fanco Wrestling gear, post a picture of it. Post a picture of it, and I will, I'll share it on Instagram. I'd love to do that. I'd love to share it in my Instagram stories and give you guys, a little shout out. And that's the other thing, if you have some wrestling moves that you want to share, if you have an awesome move that you hit this past weekend, or, in the upcoming season or whatever it is, share it with me on Instagram. And I'd love to help support you and help push you out there. That's what Fanco Wrestling is here to do. It's a wrestling community. It's a great community of fans. Now, what's coming in the future? I have more interviews that I want to keep doing. I want to keep doing interviews with wrestling coaches, college wrestlers, whether it's, big coaches, whether it's athletic trainers, just to help you guys, help you out as wrestling fans, but also give you more content. Just like, the series that I have coming out now with who are the best college wrestlers, what is the best state of wrestlers over the last 20 years. And it's a great series that's been coming out. You guys have been really enjoying it and engaging with it. Yes, there were a couple of statistical errors, and I do acknowledge that. Thank you for pointing those out. That does happen from time to time, and that's why it's great to have a wrestling community that, they're not just going to jump down my back and, call me a jag-off or whatever. They're actually going to say, okay, well, I actually think that you're a little bit wrong on this, which can happen, and that's what's great. The other thing that I just launched is the FancoWrestling.com. So there is a new website that you guys can check out. Sign up for the email list on there, where I will be sending out weekly or bi-weekly emails just talking about all of the college wrestling news. Now, without further ado, I'm going to dive into a couple of these questions. First, from Coxer Factory Zembauer. Do you think Iowa will dethrone Penn State this year? So I will be getting into topics like these over the next couple of weeks, but you guys are here to help celebrate in the live stream with me. 1 million views special. So I'm going to answer a couple of these questions. Will Penn State and what will be the Penn State and Iowa match? So first of all, I don't know if they're actually wrestling in a duel this year. We'll get to the national championships, but I don't know if they're actually wrestling in a duel this year. I hope so, because for whatever reason, Iowa didn't wrestle that many. I don't see that many great teams last year. They wrestled Oklahoma State, but they didn't wrestle Penn State. I don't remember if they wrestled Ohio State. I don't think they did, which was kind of upsetting. In the Big Ten, you want to see that happen. Whether it's at Penn State, whether it's at Iowa, you want to see that match happen. Head to head. Iowa has a tough team. They have, I believe it's like 6 or 7 returning All-Americans. They have, listen, they've especially, obviously, a 2-time national champion. He's going to beat out Penn State's 25-pounder most likely. It's just been a rough spot for Penn State over the last couple of years, where I as a Penn State fan, I want to see that weight grow. I want to see Penn State do well, but especially I love him, and I think he's going to do really well. You got DeSanto. You got Max Murin. Spencer Lee may take an Olympic red shirt. I highly doubt it, though, just because he wants to help the team win that team title. And then you have a couple of their upper weights that are just going to keep doing well. I'm giving the edge at the team tournament at the Nationals to Penn State only because they somehow have always found a way to pull it off. Their closest competition that they've had in the last couple of years has been Ohio State 2 years ago, which was one of the craziest national tournaments of all time. I believe it's the highest scoring, not overall, but as far as top two teams. I believe it's some of the highest scoring. Iowa still holds the all-time scoring record. And Isaiah Galloway, thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate that. Keep up the good work. That's helps support the channel so much. Are these super chats? And I wasn't even asked for that today, but thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Isaiah. And going back to Penn State and Iowa, it's going to be a great year in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, and I can't wait to see what happens. And DeLorean, you're right. And I apologize if I'm pronouncing a couple of these names wrong. I appreciate talking to you guys. Penn State hasn't had that many great recruits. And this past year, if you've watched the class of 2019 incoming freshman recruits, Penn State had one out of the top 100. One, and I believe it's Carter Sirachi, who's a great kid. He's in the top 25 for sure. But that was it. And that's not to say that Penn State can't develop these other kids, but when you have Ohio State, when you have Minnesota, when you have Michigan coming in here getting 4 or 5 guys, Cornell, I believe, is 7 in the top 100, that's going to be tough to compete with. Now, Penn State just has to do something to change that, because I'll be honest with you, it's going to be tough to repeat what they've done over the last couple of years with Zane and Mark Hall and Bo and Jason Olf and Chenzo all winning in 1 year. That's unheard of. That's unprecedented, and I don't know if it will ever happen again. Jeff Ayers, you say, who is the wrestler shown in the profile on your shirt pointing? Actually, here's what I like to see, or what I like to say. Is that wrestler who is the logo of Fanco Wrestling. I like to believe that's anybody. And to answer your question directly, it is nobody specifically. There is nobody specifically. That's just a logo that I created on my own, and it's just kind of, when a wrestler wins, when a wrestler gets excited, they throw up the ones. They know they won. Throw up the ones to their family, to their mom, to God, whatever it may be. They're throwing up the ones because they're so excited. And that's what I think is, the epitome of wrestling, is that celebration. So, Jeff, thanks for that great question. All you guys, thanks for these great questions. Now, a couple of other things I want to say. Let's see what else. So, junior college wrestling experience, David Puma, that's a very interesting topic to get into. Is changing and exchanging schools. It's actually a topic that I wanted to talk a little bit about over, at some point, was what happens if you go from D2 to D1, or even D1 to D3? What's that transition like? Or what happens if you don't want to wrestle anymore? I can't speak from my personal experience because I didn't wrestle in college, but I do know guys who have transferred, who have wrestled, and then they didn't want to wrestle anymore due to whatever those circumstances may be, and that's okay. And it takes some, it's a lot of pressure on guys, which I think is, kind of unfortunate, but there's a lot of pressure on guys to wrestle in college, and making those transitions, making those changes, it's not easy to deal with. So, I'd love to continue to talk about that. A couple of other things. So now I see Bob Klein, you're talking a little bit about the Olympic weights with the elimination of all the 4 weight classes. Now there are only 6. Yeah, those spots are going to be tough. You're looking at, some of those upper weights. I mean, I believe it's Burroughs, Dake, David Taylor, possibly Cox. I have to double check the weights, but could all be competing next year for that one spot at I believe 74 kilos. That's going to be a heck of a wrestle off. And Olympic trials are going to be pretty incredible. Adam Rice, I want to go back to what you're saying about Iowa. Thanks so much. Go Hawks, he says. Although I'm not a personal Iowa fan, yeah, go Hawks. Just love watching the great wrestling. There are always guys that I like to support. Now, if there doesn't look like there are too many more questions coming in, but I appreciate you guys who are joining this chat. I know school started right now, and so it's kind of tough to start watching a live stream at 3 o'clock. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are in class right now, just can't catch up, but it's great to jump in this live stream and talk to you guys directly. It's something that I want to do in the future. Please, if you're in the comments right now, if you're one of these people watching on the live stream, let me know. Would you like to see more live stream content like this? Of course, the Fanco Wrestling Show will continue and the other content will continue, but would you like to see more live streams? Because this is a lot of fun to do. It's a lot of fun to interact with you guys. You guys are such great wrestling fans. And a great wrestling community that has been here, that has supported me, supported the channel, supported everything that we've gone through together. It has been an incredible ride so far. I know I keep saying that, but it really has been, and I'm sorry, but it has been. 1 million views in a few months. It's really humbling. It's really incredible. Robert Westover, thank you for that. Congratulations on 1 million views. I can't wait for another 1 million more. However long it takes, if it's in 6 more months or whatever it is. But that's it for this edition of Fanco Wrestling, and I will see you guys next week because there's a lot to talk about. And just to give you a little heads up, we may have a little Fresno State lineup preview happening next week. I know a lot of you have been asking for that, and so I'm finally going to do it. I am so excited to jump right into that. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next show.